Hi, I'm the History Guy. I have a degree in history and I love history, and if you love history too, this is the channel for you. On July 4th, 1776, the Second Continental Congress signed the Declaration of Independence from England. It explained why they chose to, as the document says, dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another. The American Declaration of Independence had far-reaching consequences, farther than most Americans realize, and so it is fitting that we talk about a forgotten part of the American Revolution, the unknown Indian theater of operations. I don't mean Native Americans who did fight on both sides in the American Revolution. I mean that the American Revolution sparked a war a half a world away on the subcontinent of India. It is a story of great empires and the reversing fortunes of those at odds with them. And it is a story that deserves to be remembered. The 18th century was a period of great change and conflict on the Indian subcontinent. The British Honourable East India Company had been chartered by the Queen in 1600 to facilitate trade in the East Indies, and its rival, the French East India Company, had been chartered later in 1660. At the time, in the 17th century, India was largely dominated by the great Mughal Empire, which was an Islamic Turco-Persian-Mongol empire that traced its roots all the way back to the Mongol invasions of the 1200s. And at its height, the Mughal Empire ruled more than 4,000 square kilometers of the modern-day countries of India and Afghanistan. And while both the British and French East India Companies were originally created to facilitate trade, the situation changed in 1707, when the Mughal emperor died, and in the ensuing power struggle, the empire declined precipitously. And thus both the British and French started to engage in territory gathering, trying to gather up the remains of the Mughal Empire, and both trying to prevent the other from dominating trade on the Indian subcontinent. The two fought several wars in the first half of the 18th century in India, and Britain got the better of France in those wars. By 1750, France had been relegated to just a few trading posts. The British East India Company, on the other hand, had come to dominate much of India and was a major military and political player on the subcontinent. The British East India Company had its own army, which was manned and equipped by the British East India Company, and at one point included more than twice as many soldiers as the regular British Army. The Kingdom of Mysore was one of the few that had resisted Mughal rule, and they dominated a part of the southwestern tip of the subcontinent. After 1861, their effective ruler was an ardent anti-colonialist named Hyder Ali. And while he wasn't actually the king in his role as first advisor, he dominated the titular ruler and carried the title of Sultan. Mysore was a large and powerful state, and it was frequently at odds with neighboring Indian states over territorial disputes. As both Mysore and the British East India Company were large and expanding empires, it's not a surprise that they eventually came into conflict, and that first happened in 1767. The First Anglo-Mysore War was really the result of machinations of a neighboring Indian state, and in the 2-year war, the two essentially fought each other to a standstill. But eventually, the East India Company became concerned that they were diverting too many troops from other parts of India, and so they sued for peace. It was a rare victory for a native Indian state over the company. And the peace did not last for long. In 1770, Hyder Ali became convinced that the British had broken the rules of the treaty that had ended the First Anglo-Mysore War when England refused to come to their aid in a fight with a neighboring state. And so he chose to align himself with the British East India Company's worst rivals, the French. Then, in 1777, an American army under General Horatio Gates defeated a British army under General John Burgoyne in upstate New York. It was a turning point in the American Revolution. As a response, France officially signed a treaty of alliance with the United States in February of 1778, and shortly thereafter declared war on Britain. The French entry into the American Revolution had a significant impact on the course of the war, and played a critical role in the victory in the fall of 1781 of the combined American and French force under George Washington over the army of British General Charles Cornwallis at Yorktown. The British defeat at Yorktown is generally seen as the battle that decided the conflict in America's favor, even though the war continued for 2 more years. But the French entry into the American Revolution had another impact. because the British East India Company saw the newly declared war as an excuse to try to remove the last few French enclaves on the Indian subcontinent. And as some of those French enclaves were under the protection of Mysore, that led the East India Company into conflict with France's, and by proxy and unbeknownst to them, America's new ally, the Kingdom of Mysore. The Second Anglo-Mysore War was fought between 1780 and 1784, and so it outlasted the conflict that precipitated it, the American Revolution. It also outlasted the ruler of Mysore, as Hyder Ali died of cancer during the war and was replaced by his son, the Tipu Sultan. And while, like the First Mysore War, the two forces largely fought themselves to a standstill, it included some significant victories by the Mysore army over the British East India Company and regular British troops. The victory of the Tipu Sultan in the Battle of Bangalore in September of 1780, for example, was considered the greatest defeat of the company army by regular Indian forces to that date, and the entire British force of some 7,000 men was either killed or captured in the battle. While the two sides had really fought each other to a draw, and the Treaty of Bangalore, which put an end to the Second Anglo-Mysore War, just returned everything to the state of affairs that it was at before the war, it was in many ways a victory for Mysore. The inability to defeat Mysore was a great humiliation to the British East India Company, and they were further humiliated when their commissioner had to walk all the way across Mysore to get to Bangalore, where the treaty was signed. The war had such a negative impact on the stock value of the British East India Company that it played a significant role in a decision by Parliament in 1784 to essentially strip the company of its independence and place it under direct control of the British Crown. The Second Anglo-Mysore War is a great example of the impact of far-flung empires. That a battle in upstate New York could spark a war in India is certainly a testament to the age of empire, though of course this wasn't the first time that something like this happened. The French and Indian War, which had been sparked in North America by George Washington, had resulted in a worldwide war called the 7 Years' War in the 1750s. But it does seem fitting that these two peoples, the Americans in the Revolution and Mysore in the war that revolution sparked, both ended up defeating the colonial power. But they were two peoples on a different trajectory. While the Treaty of Paris would lead America to continuing growing influence and power, the Treaty of Bangalore was the very last time that a Mysore ruler, and in fact any native ruler in India, would be able to negotiate peace with the British on anything close to equal terms. The British would lose some battles in the next 150 years on the Indian subcontinent, but it would not lose any more wars. In fact, they fought 2 more wars with Mysore in the coming decade, defeating Mysore, killing the Tipu Sultan, and reducing the state to a small and subservient princely state. Ironically, the British commissioner at the time of the Third and Fourth Mysore Wars was Charles Cornwallis, the selfsame general who had surrendered to Washington at the Battle of Yorktown. And yet this unique time when two very different peoples, because of a mutual alliance, ended up contesting with the same great empire half a world apart, deserves to be remembered. I'm the History Guy, and I hope you enjoyed this edition of my series, 5 Minutes of History, short snippets of forgotten history, 5 to 10 minutes long. And if you did enjoy, then please go ahead and click that thumbs up button, which is there on your left. If you have any questions or comments, or would like to suggest another topic for the History Guy, then please write that in the comment section. I will be happy to respond. And if you'd like 5 minutes more forgotten history, don't forget to subscribe.